If we are honest for a moment, you have been walking through life as if every sidewalk were a stage and every stranger held a scorecard. You feel the weight of invisible eyes on your shoulders when you order coffee, when you hit send on an email, when you laugh a little too loudly at a joke that was only half funny. The world seems tiled with mirrors, and each reflection whispers the same verdict: not enough. You keep adjusting your posture, your tone, your very heartbeat, believing that if you strike the perfect note, the chorus of critics will quiet down. Instead, the noise grows sharper, like distant sirens that never get closer, yet never fade. You have tried to be good. You know that word almost tastes like dust now, but it sits on your tongue anyway. You have bent over backward to make sure no one feels slighted, to make sure every edge of your personality is sanded smooth, to make sure your dreams shrink small enough to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You learn the jokes people prefer and the opinions that draw the safest nods. You mastered the art of the polite half-truth, thinking that a softer truth might spare you the hard opinion. Yet even that careful dance earns a shrug, a glare, a passive-aggressive sigh, an online comment that burns long after the screen goes dark. Each time you hear the words, "not like that," "not so loud," "not so different," a flash of heat shoots through you. It is not anger first, it is shame. A blush creeps up, not only across your cheeks, but through the chambers of your mind, staining memories you thought were safe. Somewhere, a little voice says, "They are right. You overshare, you overdo, you take up too much space. You promise yourself to live smaller tomorrow." The next morning you wake up determined to be a quieter version of yourself, but life has other ideas, and eventually you spill over your own boundaries again. Then the ritual repeats: shame, apology, retreat. You once believed improvement would buy you peace. Study harder, lift heavier, speak smarter, dress sharper, and the critics would run out of ammunition. You trimmed the fat from every habit, optimized your calendar, and practiced smiles in the bathroom mirror. You stood straighter, used bigger vocabulary, learned which music felt sophisticated enough for certain crowds. And still the judgment slid in under the door like cold air on a winter night. It seeped into your phone through comment sections, into your friendships through silent comparisons, into your bedroom through the echo of a parent's voice you cannot quite forget. The more you upgraded yourself, the more clearly the spotlight found you. There is a moment, usually late, when the house is still and you can hear the refrigerator hum, that you catch sight of the raw truth. The hurt does not start with their words. It starts with your own heartbeat sprinting at the prospect of rejection. You realize the next critic could say almost anything, and you would find a way to stab yourself with it, because somewhere long ago you learned that criticism equals danger. Your nervous system still believes it, so your chest tightens as if preparing for impact even before a single syllable leaves someone else's lips. You can sense that tension right now if you pay attention to the back of your throat or the pit of your stomach. It is there, waiting. And here is the revelation most advice never mentions. The fact that you draw criticism so easily does not always spell failure. Sometimes it signals that you are alive in a way others have forgotten. Bright colors attract more eyes than dull paint. A louder song turns more heads than background chatter. Your very pulse can feel like dissonant music to people who committed long ago to staying on mute. They reach for the volume knob on your life, not because you are wrong, but because your freedom reminds them of their chains. They point, they scoff, they label, and each gesture is really a mirror held up to their own hesitation. Stay with me until the last word of this conversation, because by then you will see that what feels like a personal indictment is often a distorted tribute. You will understand why the arrows keep flying, and why learning to dodge them is less powerful than learning to let them clatter harmlessly at your feet. You will realize that the ache in your ribs after every criticism is not proof of weakness, but evidence of sensitivity. And sensitivity is simply the nervous system of authenticity. By the end, you will not hear me promise effortless immunity from judgment. I will offer something different, something fiercer. You will see that your supposed flaw is, in truth, the first unmistakable sign of your strength. Illusion 1. If I act good enough, they will finally stop criticizing me. You remember the bargain you made in childhood. Follow the rules, color inside the lines, say please and thank you, and the adults smile with relief. You kept the bargain in adolescence, swapping crayons for the right clothes, the right slang, the right silence during awkward moments. In the office, you still honor it, editing your emails until no word could offend a saint, laughing 2 seconds after everyone else to prove you are not trying too hard. You imagine there is a finish line called good enough, a magical border after which the jury will break into applause and announce, "You did it, you are officially safe." The bargain never pays out. The more softly you tread, the sharper the floor creaks under you. Someone thinks your friendliness is manipulative, your kindness is fake, your humility is attention-seeking. You trim another inch off your personality and offer the smaller version of yourself, like a peace treaty. A fresh complaint arrives the next morning. The treaty is invalid before the ink dries. The illusion collapses. Goodness, as defined by a moving crowd, changes shape faster than you can chase it. Illusion 2. Criticism means there is something wrong with me. Criticism lands, and your brain snaps to red alert. It combs through memory for evidence that confirms the charge. If a colleague says your presentation felt disorganized, every forgotten homework assignment from 3rd grade marches through your mind as Exhibit A. The nervous system hates ambiguity, so it races to close the case. Guilty. You tell yourself, if they see a flaw, the flaw must be real, because I would never attack someone without justification, so why would they? The hidden logic is brutal. It insists that people critique only when evidence is indisputable. Reality says otherwise. People critique when they are tired, when they are scared, when the room feels too small for your confidence. Their comment might reveal more about their headache than about your slide deck. Yet the primitive brain cannot risk missing danger, so it files every barb under self-defense training. Over time, you mistake the training manual for your identity. Each note in the margin, too loud, too slow, too eager, feels like a birthmark instead of stray ink. The illusion persists until you notice how quickly a critic contradicts himself from one conversation to the next. The flaw cannot be permanent if the verdict changes with the weather. Illusion 3. I can make everyone like me if I just try hard enough. This illusion seduces the overachiever inside you, the part that loves gold stars. It promises an unbroken chain of glowing faces on every Zoom call, waves of thumbs up under every post, unconditional applause at Thanksgiving. The illusion sells you the idea that likability is a math problem. Add helpfulness, subtract rough edges, multiply by humor, divide by contrarian opinions. Balance the equation, and no one will frown. The math never balances because every person in the room uses a different formula. One friend praises you for speaking your mind, another finds the same sentence offensive. A mentor applauds your appetite for risk. A sibling calls it reckless. You begin spinning plates, racing from one demand to the next, praying none of them crash at the same time. Eventually, they crash anyway. You discover that universal approval is impossible even for those who never take a stance on anything. Someone will dislike you for the sin of neutrality, branding it cowardice. The crowd does not want consensus. It wants projection screens. When you refuse to be their preferred image, they boo. Why be yourself and just ignore them rarely work. Popular advice hands you slogans like quick dissolve pills. Be yourself, as if decades of conditioning dissolve after one Instagram quote. Just ignore them, as if the limbic system obeys rational commands. These slogans fail because they oversimplify the machinery beneath your ribcage. When criticism strikes, it triggers the same neural circuitry designed for survival on a savanna. Heart rate spikes, cortisol floods, attention narrows to potential threat. Telling someone in that state to be chill is like telling a fire alarm to hum jazz. To be yourself, you must first identify who that self is beneath layers of adaptive camouflage. That excavation hurts. To ignore them, you would need a severed social nervous system because humans evolved to depend on tribe feedback for survival. Exile once meant death, so the modern nervous system still treats disapproval as a crime scene. No pep talk overrides biology. The hidden mechanism that turns other people's sentences into your self-indictment. Inside your mind lives a courtroom that never closes. The judge is the internalized voice of anyone who ever mattered. A parent tired after work, a teacher who preferred silence, a first love who ghosted without explanation. Each new critic walks through the door and joins the prosecution. The defense attorney often oversleeps, so every cross-examination ends with the same verdict: guilty until proven perfect. You cannot stop feeling the sting because the courtroom microphone is wired directly to old scar tissue. A new insult pierces not fresh skin, but the half-healed wound beneath. The echo is louder than the original blow. Key insight. Criticism is not automatically about you. Frequently, it is the shadow of the critic's own denied hunger projected onto the nearest screen, you. Your desire for visibility magnifies the places they feel invisible. Your willingness to risk failure spotlights the corners where they never stepped beyond certainty. They hurl the word selfish because they outlawed self-care in their own life. They label you dramatic because their emotions were once mocked into silence. You are not receiving an objective report card. You are watching a shadow puppet show of their private ghosts. Feel that click in your chest, the sudden space where guilt used to sit. Notice the air rushing in. That is the moment a new story becomes possible. If any part of this lands inside you, if you feel the room get brighter because someone finally said it, subscribe to the channel. Algorithms push these conversations farther when you join us, and someone out there is still blaming themselves for shadows that are not theirs. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a vast control room lit by 100 flickering gauges. The instant criticism enters the scene, whether it is a side-eyed glance, a tight-lipped comment, or a casual swipe online. A red bulb flares on the panel. Sirens do not blare, yet every meter leaps. Your heartbeat accelerates, your breath shallows, your muscles tighten by fractions you barely notice. This is the body's ancient code, a survival script written long before keyboards and comment threads existed. In less than a breath, the limbic system decides danger is present, even if the threat is nothing more than pixels or an offhand remark at dinner. The cortex tries to step in with logic, yet it often arrives late to the party. While it drafts polite replies, should I clarify, defend, withdraw? The deeper brain has already dumped a cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. Your thinking becomes narrow, your vision tunnels, and suddenly the critic's voice sounds enormous, as though it booms from the ceiling of the control room itself. That is why a single sentence can hijack an otherwise ordinary afternoon. You are not weak for feeling that hit. You are wired for it. Carl Jung offered a map for this territory when he spoke of the shadow. The shadow is not evil by nature. It is merely the set of traits we exile because they violate the rules of belonging we learned early on. Maybe your family frowned upon anger, so you banished your temper into the dark. Perhaps your community mocked vulnerability, so you locked tenderness behind iron doors. Those disowned parts do not die. They wait, and they haunt. When another person moves through the world embodying what we have hidden, the shadow seizes its chance to speak. You see someone unapologetically ambitious, and a rush of hot judgment surfaces. too full of herself, must be taken down a peg. You recognize only the irritation, not the buried hunger underneath. A part of you longs to chase goals that boldly, yet you were taught ambition invites shame. The more brightly that person shines, the louder your shadow clamors. Criticism often erupts right there, a reflexive attempt to cancel the discomfort of unmet desire. That is why vibrant people become targets. Your freedom exposes other people's shackles. Your courage stirs the dust where their dreams lie dormant. They may not consciously resent you, they may even believe their feedback is constructive. Yet somewhere behind their words stands a frightened figure whispering, "If their light is possible, why am I still in the dark?" Silence that light before it blinds me. To track the roots of this reflex, we need to trace a line back to childhood. Picture a toddler who wobbles toward the edge of a coffee table. A caregiver's warning cuts the air. "Careful, you will fall." The words are meant as protection, and sometimes they are, but over the years, similar statements can morph from guidance into judgment. "Why can't you sit still? Why are you so loud? You embarrass me when you dance like that." The young nervous system records each phrase as a rule for survival within its tribe. Approval means safety. Disapproval spells exile. Fast forward to adulthood, and the rulebook is thicker than any real law. Even a playful remark from a stranger, "Wow, you really went for that bright jacket," can spark an inner audit. Is this acceptable, or will I lose belonging? The evaluation loop runs automatically, faster than thought, because once upon a time, it truly was a matter of safety. We rarely notice how much of our adult behavior is calibrated not by present-day choice, but by echoes of scoldings long past. The parental voice seeps into our self-talk, disguised as wisdom. Do not make waves. Do not be too much. Do not stand out. So when criticism stings, words are only the blunt instrument. The sharp edge is memory, cutting along scars you may not remember forming. Someone calls you selfish, and it slices into the place where a parent once sighed that you always asked for too much. Another labels you dramatic, and it punctures the space where a teacher mocked your tears in front of the class. Pain erupts, not from the syllables themselves, but from their collision with wounds that never fully healed. Here lies the paradox. The harder you strive to be universally good, the more pressure you place on those wounds. Perfectionism demands constant readiness to please, which means constant vigilance for disapproval. You become exquisitely attuned to every eyebrow twitch, every pause in a conversation, reading danger where perhaps only boredom sits. That hypersensitivity attracts even casual critiques like iron filings to a magnet. Worse, people often sense when someone is desperate for approval. To insecure observers, that desperation smells like power they can seize. A single barb dropped in your direction lets them watch you scramble for validation. The performance reassures them that they still have control. Your effort to disappear inside niceness therefore invites exactly the arrows you hope to dodge. You shrink, yet the target painted on your back somehow grows. Each fresh attack convinces you to shrink further. Eventually, life feels like a hallway that narrows every time you breathe in. Pause here and notice a pattern. Every external critic seems to have a shadow twin already installed inside your ribcage. When the coworker scoffs or the sibling rolls eyes, an inner voice amplifies the moment with chilling familiarity. It repeats the verdict, sometimes harsher, because it has studied your insecurities for years and knows precisely where to jab. That voice masquerades as helpful coach. We can do better next time. But its tone reveals its true identity, the inner persecutor. And here comes the second emotional hook. There is something even scarier than facing the crowd. Sometimes the fiercest critic lives within, wearing your face, mimicking your cadence, promising that if you obey its rules, you will finally be safe. Yet safety never arrives, and the rules keep multiplying. Stay with me, because in the next breath, we will unmask that imposter and reclaim the authority it stole. Picture the voice that wakes you first thing in the morning. It greets you before sunlight, before coffee, before anyone else utters a syllable. Some mornings it whispers, other mornings it snarls, but the script rarely changes. You should have done more yesterday. You will probably fall short today. Many of the sentences feel familiar because they are borrowed. A parent's sigh from decades ago, a coach's bark on a rainy field, a partner's bored shrug, each line replayed until it fused with your own cadence. Over time, the voice no longer sounds like an echo. It sounds like you. That is how outside judgment becomes inside doctrine. Childhood ears record every tone as if survival depends on accurate playback. Once the recording is etched, the original speaker can leave the stage. The tape loops on its own. You still call it self-talk, yet it is an imported language you never chose. The inner critic is more dangerous than any live heckler because it holds the master key to your nervous system. External critics knock on the door, some politely, some with fists, but they remain outside unless you invite them in. The internal critic already lives in the house. It rearranges the furniture, dims the lights, and scrawls warnings on the walls while you sleep. When a stranger online calls you mediocre, that word stings only if your inner judge rises to confirm the charge. One punch from inside lands harder than a dozen from outside because you cannot step away from your own skull. Notice the pattern after you accomplish something that would impress your younger self. A promotion, a marathon, a difficult conversation handled with grace. You feel a flicker of pride, but the critic douses it quickly. Lucky break, anyone could have done that. You only succeeded because the bar was low. The applause fades before the room finishes clapping. Diminishing your success serves a twisted logic. If the victory counts, expectations rise. Better shrink it. Call it trivial. Stay beneath the radar where nobody asks you to repeat such brilliance. The same reflex masks your strength. You temper your opinions with disclaimers, audition your ideas as rough drafts, laugh off compliments as if they were misunderstandings. You keep the volume of your talent low because somewhere inside lingers an old equation. Visibility equals scrutiny. Scrutiny equals rejection. The equation never gets tested, so it remains intact. Meanwhile, your brightest qualities hibernate, waiting for permission that never arrives. Self-sabotage enters as preventive medicine against imagined exile. The brain predicts that shining too brightly might threaten the bonds you cherish. Love from family, acceptance from colleagues, belonging among friends. These feel conditional. If success or authenticity jeopardizes those ties, the primitive mind chooses loyalty over growth every time. You forget the due date, miss the audition, stay with the job that numbs you, claim you are just tired, when in truth you fear surpassing the tribe's ceiling. Failure by accident is easier to grieve than exile by achievement. As long as the inner judge presides unchallenged, external criticism keeps piercing old scars. The wound stays raw because the gavel keeps falling inside the courtroom you carry everywhere, so the work ahead is not silencing every outside voice. That is impossible. The work is reducing the authority you grant the voice within. When its verdict loses final say, outer arrows arrive with blunted tips. They may bruise, but they no longer decide who you are. The moment that shift begins, you notice a new stillness beneath the noise. Not silence. Life remains loud, but a space where the next decision can emerge from value rather than fear. From there, every step away from self-sabotage is also a step towards self-trust. Outer critics still talk. They just stop speaking in your accent. Take a breath and meet the fact head-on. The sting of criticism does not fade just because you sprint away from it. You can switch cities, delete apps, change jobs, ghost half the people who used to know your name, and still one casual remark will find you like heat-seeking radar. Running only trains the wound to travel with you. The real work begins when you decide to stop, turn toward the ache, and let it speak. Step 1. Full acknowledgement. Say it plainly in your own language. Yes, this hurts. Yes, I feel small right now, and that is absolutely normal. Pain is not a malfunction. It is a signal that life is coursing through your nerves, that something you value, belonging, respect, self-expression, has been tugged. The sooner you drop the shame for hurting, the sooner the hurt can loosen its grip. Place a hand on the center of your chest if it helps, and tell the body, I see you. No need to hide this pulse. Step 2. Naming the projection. Criticism often arrives wearing your name tag, yet it carries someone else's baggage. When a colleague scoffs that you always need attention, pause and translate. That sounds like their fear of being unseen. When an older sibling calls your new venture reckless, decode it. That is their terror of risk, not proof of my incompetence. Repeating the phrase, that is their fear, not my fault, turns a sniper shot into background noise. Notice how the comment lands softer the instant you give ownership back to its true source. Step 3. Dropping from mind to body. Thoughts spin stories. The body tells blunt truth. After a harsh word, your forehead might buzz, your shoulders may clench, or heat could bloom across your cheeks. Instead of analyzing why it happens, shift attention to where it happens. Slowly scan from crown to toes. When you find the hot spot, anchor awareness there for 3 unhurried breaths. Imagine exhaling through that spot, widening it by millimeters with every cycle. Sensation will swell, crest, and subside like a wave. By riding it consciously, you release adrenaline before it calcifies into anxiety loops. One simple drill: stand barefoot, knees soft, weight balanced. Inhale through the nose for a slow count of 4. Feel the rib cage expand outward. Then exhale 6 counts through pursed lips, sensing the soles spread on the floor. Lengthening the exhale cues the vagus nerve to downshift the alarm. Do 3 rounds, no more. Your thinking mind will reboot on a calmer frequency. Step 4. Choosing exposure over contraction. Here comes the paradox. Letting yourself become the topic of conversation is sometimes the safest move for your spirit. Critics rely on your instinct to shrink. They bet that you will scale down dreams, mute opinions, and dim colors so they can stay comfortable. Flip the script. Let them talk. Let them huddle and label. Every minute they spend dissecting your audacity is a minute they neglect polishing their own shackles. You are not required to broadcast every secret or selfie, but you can decide never again to amputate a part of your essence just to fit into someone else's narrow corridor. If your art wants neon, paint neon. If your ideas want volume, speak from the diaphragm. Visibility will draw side-eye. That is the tax on authenticity. Pay it gladly and keep the receipts as proof you are living instead of negotiating your right to exist. Practical micro-practices for daily integration. 1. The 30-second seat. Next time criticism hits, imagine an actual chair beside you marked Observer. Sit there mentally for half a minute. No fixing, no flinching. Only observe bodily sensation and inner chat. When the timer in your head dings, return to action from that more spacious posture. The chair exercise trains the nervous system to insert perspective before reaction. 2. Their fear label. Write the critic's statement in a notebook. Beneath it, jot a single sentence starting with, "This reveals their fear of." Complete it quickly, no filtering. The speed bypasses polite rationalization and surfaces insight. Over time, you build a catalog of projections that no longer stick. 3. Shadow dialogue. Once a week, set a 10-minute timer, open a blank page, and let your hidden side draft a letter. Maybe it is jealous, enraged, or exhilarated. Do not censor vocabulary. When the timer ends, reread with curiosity, not judgment. Close by writing 2 lines back. I see you. I will not exile you for speaking. Reintegration begins with permission to exist on paper. 4. Somatic bookends. Morning. 3 slow shoulder rolls forward, 3 back. Then shake out the hands like flicking water from fingertips, signals the body you intend to move energy instead of hoard it. Evening, lie on the floor, knees bent, feet flat, and press lower spine gently into the ground for 5 breaths, releasing the psoas muscle that locks when criticism lingers. These bookends tell the nervous system it can cycle stress rather than store it. Why persistence matters. Each micro-act is a stitch in new connective tissue between cognition and sensation. Skipping practice after a peaceful week is tempting. Your critic will claim nothing needs fixing, but integration is less like patching a flat tire and more like daily brushing of teeth. Neglect invites plaque of old reflexes to accumulate. 2 minutes of maintenance now beats hours of repair later. The deeper payoff. As the shadow becomes ally instead of outlaw, you notice freedom in surprising places. A friend's teasing no longer hijacks your pulse. A lukewarm review feels like information, not indictment. Even praise lands differently. You savor it without needing repeat doses to stay upright. Gradually, you realize you have room for more ambitious risks, not because danger vanished, but because your allegiance shifted inward. Criticism still flicks sparks, yet there is less tinder inside to ignite. A final nudge. Give yourself permission to be the story others tell at lunch. Their chatter cannot shrink you unless you digest it as truth. Let them discuss, debate, misinterpret. Meanwhile, you direct that liberated energy toward building, exploring, creating, actions aligned with your values, not their permission slips. Because here is a truth that never made the small print of childhood lessons. Comfort zones are social contracts, and contracts can be renegotiated. Every time you refuse to trim your brilliance, you rewrite the terms. Some will walk away. Others will inhale deeper, encouraged by the oxygen you release. Either outcome confirms the same reality. You are alive in full color, and that is worth every ripple of discomfort along the way. Practical toolkit, turning criticism into fuel. You have walked through the theory. Now we anchor it in muscle memory. The aim is not to become bulletproof, but to become lightproof, so radiant that incoming arrows simply can't find a shadow deep enough to lodge in. Mini practice, the 3-step reset. Step 1, pause. The moment criticism hits, imagine your nervous system as a clenched fist. Your first task is not to argue facts, it is to unclench. Count a slow 1, 2, 3 on the inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the exhale. That single extra beat on the way out signals safety to the vagus nerve and stops the limbic siren from hijacking your tongue. You are not letting them win. You are buying back the 2 most expensive commodities on earth, attention and intention. Step 2. Question the ownership. Ask silently, is this truly about me, or am I standing in the path of their unhealed story? Picture the critic holding a backpack. Every painful life experience is a brick inside it. Are they trying to hand you their pack? If so, visualize setting it down beside them. You don't have to pick it up to keep walking. Step 3. Act from values, not approval. Identify one core value: honesty, creativity, courage, service, whichever feels most alive now. Then take a micro-action aligned with that value before you respond. Maybe you clarify a fact for the sake of transparency. Maybe you invite a calm follow-up call because relationship matters. Whatever the move, let the value steer the wheel, not the urge to please or retaliate. Practice the sequence out loud when stakes are low: traffic jams, minor social media barbs, sitcom arguments, so your body learns the choreography before opening night. 4 daily drills to keep your edges sharp. 1. Micro victory log. Each night jot down 3 tiny moments when you lived your value despite potential judgment. Spoke a boundary, backed your own idea, left an uncomfortable silence unfilled. This log re-educates the brain to track evidence for self-trust instead of evidence for danger. In 2 weeks, the ratio of supportive thoughts to critical ones shifts measurably. 2. 2 chairs, 1 breath. Set 2 empty chairs facing each other. Sit in one as self. Describe a recent critique in a single sentence. Switch seats, become shadow, speak the hidden fear that shot the arrow. I fear irrelevance, so I called you arrogant. Return to the self chair, inhale once, and conclude, I refuse your fear, but I see your pain. The ritual externalizes projection and finishes in under 90 seconds. 3. Somatic shake-off. After any stressful exchange, stand with feet hip-width, bend knees, and shake your limbs for 20 full seconds. Let the jaw rattle, cheeks flap, fingers flick. Animals discharge adrenaline this way. Humans write snarky emails. Choose the mammal wisdom. 4. Weekly flashlight. Every Sunday, list one arena where you are still dimming your glow. Wardrobe, LinkedIn profile, speaking volume, relationship needs. Commit to one bold adjustment for the next 7 days. The rule: the step must feel one size too big to guarantee growth, but not so big that you'll abandon ship. Permission slip. You do not have to become iron. Toxic positivity says, rise above. Stoic memes command, unfazed. Real life is grittier. You will flinch, you will overthink, you will replay a cutting phrase at 3 a.m. That is not failure. That is evidence your soul still has soft tissue. The work is not about welding armor over the heart. It is about stopping the cover-up of its natural light. Soft does not mean weak. It means receptive enough to sense direction. So keep the light visible. On days you cannot roar, let it flicker. Even a candle can ruin the plans of darkness. You will be criticized forever if you insist on burning brighter than the average porch light. And that is exactly as it should be. Every time your glow unsettles someone, it proves there is another possible voltage for a human life. You become living evidence that the script can be rewritten, and that unsettles anyone still clinging to the old story. Remember, pushback is not a cue to shrink. It is applause from the part of the world still afraid to stand up. If you are done auditioning for roles that never fit, type masks off in the comments. Let's count how many here are ready to live unscripted and unapologetic. It's only the beginning.